the launch of his book, Soul Trader, to our cousins and friends and brothers and sisters across the pond in the US. So a big welcome and hello to everyone who's tuned in to watch us from the US. Thanks very much. Also to everyone else, of course, giving up some of your valuable time. I know it's really precious, so we all really appreciate that. And finally, just want to say hi and a shout out to Ashley from Kogan Page in the US, who's helped organize a lot of this, and I know has done some promotion and so on. I'm really excited about tonight. I'm here with Rasheed, of course, author, talk about the book, and also with another great guest, Suzanne Whitby, who is a great friend and colleague of Rasheed's as well, and she's going to be sharing a lot of her experiences. So perhaps, Rasheed, you just want to take it over now and give a bit of an intro, and also perhaps, Suzanne, it'll be great to hear from you as well.
Super.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tom. And welcome everybody again. Yeah, welcome to Soul Trader Live. It's really exciting to be here. And for those of you who haven't met Tom before, Tom's the co-founder of Evolved Heart, and Evolved Heart's all about helping people live life from their heart and do what they're wanting to do. And this is a very special talk where I'm going to be sharing tips from my new book, Soul Trader, Putting the Heart Back into Your Business, which is published today in the United States. So a huge thanks again to Ashley from the publisher's Kogan Page. And as Tom's saying, a big thank you to all of you who are watching in, tuning in via Google+, YouTube, via our website at Evolved Heart. Welcome everybody. Just to give you a bit of an idea of the flow of this evening, I'm going to be spending about probably 15 minutes or so sharing, first of all, some of the key tips from the book, Soul Trader, Putting the Heart Back into Your Business. Really, the book is all about how is it you're able to build a business that you love, that your customers are going to love, in line with your values for you. And if you're listening to this in the States, we've called the book Soul Trader. In the UK, we have a phrase called Soul Trader. In the States, I think you tend to call people sole proprietors. So this is going to really resonate with you if you're ever running a small business, perhaps if you're sole proprietor, if you are your business, if you're an expert, if you're a creative, anybody who's really running a small business and you're wanting to do what you love. Or if in fact you're actually thinking about running a business, so it might be that you've been in business for some time, or it might be that you're thinking about running a business, or you're literally just starting out in the process. Either way, the 7 principles that I'm going to be sharing with you from the book, plus an additional one, are going to be what it is that you need that's just going to help you to run a business that you care about, that your customers care about. And the book's all about how is it you can cut out the financial and the economic costs of running a business. And our guest, I'm going to say a very, very quick hello. I'm really pleased with this. One of my favorite business colleagues who's actually based in the States, who is Suzanne Whitby. Suzanne is founder of Future Makers. Suzanne's first career was in project management. Suzanne then runs her own business. She's helped people with everything from website design, everything really to do with communication. Suzanne, how am I doing so far with an introduction for you?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Excellent. Well, we're really glad to have you here, and I thought that it's great having you here on this call, because I think that once I've walked a little bit through the book, it'll be really good to get your thoughts on a couple of the things in the book. Particularly, I mean, there's some of the things in the book are things like creativity. I mean, obviously, one of the key things is when people are running a business, there's everything from their brand that they're thinking about through to their websites. And also there's other issues in terms of communication. I know you help people deal with cross-cultural communication and so on, all the stuff about how people need to communicate and put themselves across. And then there's also an angle which I guess is apt for today's talk. Lots of people more and more, and via the power of technology of things like this, many people are running businesses that could have an international reach. And what's wonderful, for example, about your business, you're based in the States, most of your clients happen to be in Europe. So I'd really welcome some of your thoughts later on in terms of just tips for people if they're going to be doing business internationally, and particularly some of those cross-cultural things that people may never think about if they're doing business internationally.
Right, okay.
Well, that'd be fantastic. Right, so Tom, shall I go straight along and first of all kick us off by sharing some of the insights from the book? And then, of course, one of the things I should additionally say is that, of course, we're going to be taking in questions. There might be questions that you've got that coming in. And Tom's going to also grill me. I know you're going to be grilling me about some themes in the book.
Look forward to it. And just one quick thing, if I may, Rasheed. Obviously, people can watch this live on the blog at evolvedheart.com/ and I should know this by heart, /soul-trader-USA-live. And if people have any questions, they can actually just leave them in the comment box on that page as well, and I'll pick them up that way as well. So having said that, Rasheed, yep, take it over. Great.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to really walk you through a few of the tips and the insights from this particular book, Soul Trader, Putting the Heart Back into Your Business. And really, as I said before, it's really about how it is that you can run a business that you'll love, that your customers will love, and to cut out the financial and the economic costs of running a business. We're in quite unusual times at the moment. What's interesting is that the necessity, the need, and the desire that many people have to be the master of their own destiny, to run their own business, has perhaps never been higher. The economic downturn, both sides of the pond, have meant that many people have been losing jobs or being made redundant. But also for a very long time, people in the UK and in the USA and internationally, many people have had that dream to be their own boss and to run their own thing. But one of the things that happens very early on, very often, is that when people get not far into the business, all that passion, all that drive to change their life, to be their own boss and to make their family proud has been replaced by all the heartache and the pain often of running a business. And so the dream of having more time for the family, or the dream of really loving what you do, can often go away as you get caught up in the paperwork and so on. So the book is all about how is that you're able to really build a business that you love. One of the other things that often happens is that sometimes, particularly as businesses grow, that we become so caught up in our own view of the world as an entrepreneur, we actually forget about our customers. And very often there's so much noise around how you should be marketing, how you promote yourself, that we often forget the very basics, that business is all about people. So the book's all about stripping away all the complexity and sharing with you 7 + 1 additional principle that to help you to move ahead and build a business that you love. So I'm going to crack on with the first one. And I'm going to run through these very briefly just to give you an overview of the book, and then we're going to discuss some of these themes. And I know that Tim will probably quiz me on a couple of these themes, and together with Suzanne, I'm sure some of the themes will come up. The first one is clarity. If you're not clear, then nothing will be clear. But once you are clear, everything's going to be clear. And what I mean by that is this: you've got to ask yourself some very, very, very important questions, whether it is that you're thinking about starting a business, whether you are in business, or whether you're somewhere in between. You're kind of starting out, you're dipping your toe in business. So there's a few questions I'm just going to throw out at you, and might be things for you to think about. What's really important to you in your life? Why are you starting up a business in the first place? What is that you're wanting from a business? And what are your personal circumstances? So for you, it might well be, you might be thinking, well, you know what, at the moment I'm in a job, I don't really like my job, but I've been wanting to set up a business for some time. Or for you, you might be thinking, well, no, I've been in business for some time now, and for me, I really need some more customers, or I'm just wanting to boost my profile, or there's some new things I need to address, there's some new technology, or I need a new website, or I've got some of these particular challenges, or I don't know how to enter a new market. So the question is, where is it that you're at now? What's really important to you in life? What's really important to you when it comes to business? And what's really important to you when it comes to relationships? And one of the beauties of this particular talk is you can come back to it, pause it, and come back to it. The book really walks you through a whole series of questions, and it's really important that you know why you're in business. I also invite you to go a little bit further. What are you passionate about? Are you doing what you're passionate about? I mean, many people who are in business already, but they're not really passionate about, or they're not doing it in a passionate way. So you've really got to know what you're passionate about, what your skills and your talents are. Those kind of questions are really going to help you if you're kind of thinking about dipping your toe into the water. If you haven't started running a business and you're thinking about running a business that you're not passionate about, where you don't have the skills, then the chances are is going to be even a harder struggle. So it's really important that you do find some passion, because there's going to be a lot of struggle involved in that. I also want to invite you to become clear about some very, very specific things going deeper. What is it you're wanting from your business financially? How much money do you need to make? And how much money is it that you aspire to make? And again, what are your personal circumstances? How is it that you want your business to look? How big is it you dream? Business is a different thing to different people. For some people, business is about having a chain of shops and owning a big mansion. For somebody else, running their own business is just about being the master of their own destiny and being able to make enough money to live and being able to create the thing that you create that pleases you and so on, and just being the master of your own destiny, as I say. So it's really important that you ask yourself very specifically, what is that I'm wanting to achieve personally? What's that I'm wanting to try achieve financially, in business? And what are your aspirations? Maybe you've entered the market that you're in for all sorts of reasons. That's one thing. So that's the third thing about clarity. But once you are clear, it's really important that you stay clear. There's this particular saying, it's particularly used here in the UK, that lots of people spend a lot of time in the business doing the day-to-day stuff, but not time on the business, planning where their business is and helping that business development. So one of the things I really invite you to think about is, do you put in regular time where you can stop, pause, reflect, look at how the business is doing, look at how you're doing, and so on, and actually take time out. Sometimes it might be for you to recharge and so on. That's very, very important, because I often say if you don't take breaks, then you're going to break. So that's the first theme, which is all about clarity. And it's really the essence, it's the building block of the book. But here's the second theme. The second theme is your customers. So once you're clear about what's really important, then it's all about your customers. So I invite you to take off the hat of you being you and to become your customers. Who are your customers? Who are your potential customers? Very often when we're starting business, we think, well, you know, I'm a photographer, that's anyone who wants to take a photograph. But is that actually true? What are the different circumstances in which somebody might want a photograph? Weddings, schools, anniversary, various events, architecture. There's a whole myriad there. Which of those areas are you passionate about, and what is it your customers want? So it's really important that you begin to understand things and look at life through the lens of your customer. Because until you do, you might be obsessed by the idea that you think everybody needs a three-handled teacup, but you may never have asked people if they want a three-handed teacup. And lo and behold, you press the three-handed teacups and nobody's interested. And there's a wonderful story in a book, but a sad story, and it happens very often, about a wonderful lady who was a yoga teacher, a friend of a contact of mine, who had this idea of producing some wonderful shoes for people to yoga, because they often do it barefoot. And she produced these lovely soft shoes that she thought people would want. She went off and she produced thousands of them. And lo and behold, people didn't want them. She didn't perhaps ask them about the size, the shape, the comfort, the texture. She hadn't had that dialogue. Or she hadn't really thought about, would her stockists, who are also customers, you know, would suppliers be interested in that? So you've really got to go out there and actually have that conversation. Don't be afraid of actually asking people who you know, people that you don't know, and so on. So you may need to do all sorts of research. There might be all sorts of actual practical research that's out there, but also you cannot replace the importance of actually asking people real time what it is that they want. So for example, in my work, I'm a coach. I'm a life coach, I'm a business coach, I'm a corporate coach. There are very, very different scenarios that people might come to me. Somebody might come to me because they're being made redundant. Somebody might be coming to me because they've got a team that needs to be motivated. You need to be able to understand the pain, the pain points and the desires of your customer. The more you understand them, then the more it is that you're going to be able to serve them. And if you think about this, this happens all the time. If you think about when you're a customer, one of the things that really annoys us about many big companies, for example, is when they stop listening. That's when you change your utility company. That's when you stop going into that shop because you're not being listened to. So don't make that same mistake. And throughout the journey, it's important that you continue to speak to and listen to your customers. So that's the second theme. The third theme is a theme about courage. And this is a huge one. You know, I think one of the great things about having Tom and Suzanne on the call today is that, you know, here are people who've run businesses, or they've been involved in business projects in different countries. That, for example, takes a lot of courage. Whatever it is that whatever field you're going into is going to take a lot of courage. You know, so you need to know what is at the heart of what makes you tick. So when in the first chapter, in that first theme, when I was asking you about clarity, it's really important you know what your values are, what your passion is, what it is that you're really, really about, because there's going to be all sorts of challenges. Your customers are going to change. The economy is going to change. We're in an era now where there's a lot of economic uncertainty. Without that kind of courage, without you being steadfast, it's going to be really, really difficult, because there might be challenges about you getting your first customer, might be challenges about you know, taking on your first member of staff. There are going to be challenges that when customers are complaining about things, or when there are technology problems, there's going to be challenges all the time. So you really need to find what it is that where your courage point is. And I think perhaps maybe, Tom, that might be something that we might come back to when we're asking those kind of questions, because I think, and I'd love to get your view and Suzanne's view about that, but it's really important. But also very often the secret to your business may lie in your courage and your story. The book really invites you to explore who it is that you are in your story. So for example, in my case, one of the areas where I needed to have courage was that when I trained as a coach, and coaching is very much about goal, success, and all the rest of it, I had a feeling that there was something missing, the subtler stuff, trust, flow, and so on, all the sole trader stuff that I'm talking at the heart side of business. And I thought, first of all, nobody, when I'm dealing with entrepreneurs, when I'm dealing with corporates, do they want us to talk about this stuff, this spiritual, some might even say stuff, this heart stuff? And it took me the courage to trust that. And actually, that's why people come to me. So very often, your courage to create your product your way, and to articulate your values, your story, may well be the only thing that's going to make you unique. There's going to be hundreds of other accountants, hundreds of other web developers, hundreds of other consultants. What is it that's going to make you unique? Hundreds of other app makers, or whatever it might well be, the field that you're in. So that's courage. The next theme is cooperation. And this is really important. One of the themes that I say in the book is that without cooperation, well, everything, first of all, is interconnected. Everything's interconnected. We're all interrelated, interconnected one. Here we have it, that I'm on this phone, I'm on this call with Tim, who I work with on Evolved Heart, who is a marketing specialist that I work with, Suzanne, who does web work and helps me with some of my projects. My business, even though that lots of people only see Rashid Ogunlari, the author, and so on, I could not run my business without people like Suzanne to help me on some of that, on some of my web and my brand issues, without someone like Tim to be able to help me with some of those marketing particular themes. So without cooperation, international trade wouldn't happen. So if nation states like the USA, China, the UK aren't independent and they rely on trade, however much stuff they might produce, then what makes you think that you're independent? It's important that we're able to develop a network. You know, who are the people? What's all the kind of expertise that you're going to need? So if be it that you're starting out, what's all the different expertise you might need? You might think, okay, I need somebody to help me with my finance. I might need an accountant. I might need this. I might need somebody to help me with some admin. You know, really begin to think about what are the skills and what's the support that you need. And one of the things that the book does is helps you to map out your network. They say that we all know 200 people. Nowadays, with the advent of social media, we probably know more like double that or more. But very often one of the themes is, and maybe we'll come back to this in the chat later, is that very often people don't know how to leverage their network. They're not connecting with their network. So really I want you to think about, you know, what are the kind of help and support that you need? Where are the gaps? What are the skills that you have, and how could the people in your network be working together? Again, one of the wonderful things about when I started out in business, I happened to meet a number of other people who work with small businesses, one of whom was Suzanne, and we realized that we could help each other. One person did marketing, another one was a lawyer, another one, me, was a coach, another person did finance, Heather, who couldn't join us tonight, and we realized we all had a very similar ethos, and we worked together under the umbrella Zestworks. We all worked independently, but we therefore could punch above our weight, and we could cross-refer clients, and that is a very powerful way. So again, maybe you're a photographer, maybe you can team up with somebody who's doing something that is parallel to your service. This can be very, very powerful, and as a small business, it can really help up the ante, bring in more customers, give you more bargaining power. And in the case of Zestworks, what we did, we teamed up, we produced a book, we ran events and so on, things that we may not have been able to do or had the resources to do when we were independent. So that's an example of, just one example of cooperation, and it's very important as a small business owner to explore those things. The next thing that I want to touch on is conversations. That's what this whole live chat here is about. Without conversations, you know, for me, customer conversion, you know, once you're clear who you are, that first phase about clarity, this is who I am, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and then you go through the second phase of, okay, here are my customers and I'm beginning to engage with them. Once you tap into your courage, then actually what you're talking about then is converting customers, assuming you've got a good product. Now, customer conversion is all dependent on the right customer conversation, and to my mind, everything is a conversation. What your business card is saying, what your website looks like. Again, one of the reasons why it's great having Suzanne here, who helps people with all of those kind of aspects of how people kind of present themselves, not just in terms of online, but actually Suzanne often works people, let's say they're working internationally and all that kind of stuff. That everything is a conversation, networking event. Are you having the right conversation? And again, this requires us understanding the psychology. Nobody is interested in you and two, you're interested in them. So one of the things that Soul Trader does is help you to understand the psychology of understanding and influencing people, which is really, really important. So you can have really compelling conversations. What is the conversation that's actually going to make somebody buy your product? You're only going to know that when you understand that. What is the conversation that's going to actually make a member of staff show up to work on time? We've all probably had the experience where we've been working in places where people haven't been able to motivate us. So you need to understand your motives. You need to understand what makes other people tick. And again, perhaps that might well be a theme that might well come out in our chat, or some of you at home might have questions. So that's conversations. The next theme in the book is about creativity. And really the creativity chapter brings lots of this stuff together, because you're going to need to be creative as your business develops. Now, there's a number of different aspects to this. One aspect to creativity is that, first of all, how are you at your best? If I'm a coach. If I'm coaching you and you happen to be an athlete, for example, let's say I happen to be a coach to athletes, I need to understand what makes you tick, what your motivations are, which disciplines you're best at, what your strengths and your weaknesses are. You need to know the same thing as an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is an athlete as far as I'm concerned. You need to master your craft. You need to win and gain supporters. You really need to give 100% all the time. So you need to understand what you're like at your best. What time of day are you at your best? What tasks are you at your best at? You need to understand these things deeply. If you've got a team, what things are they good at, and what things are you good at? Are you really employing people very well? Again, you may have experienced times in organizations before where you have been underemployed. You need to understand what you're like at your best. But you also need to understand when to work and when to rest. So creativity has got a lot to do with creation, nature, call it what you like. And very often people are very surprised, and again, I think Tom might pick me up on this, people are very surprised very often when I'm coaching them, that even when I'm coaching entrepreneurs, CEOs, or entertainment, hugely successful people, the first thing I do is I look at their home life. I look at their hobbies. I make sure that they're energized. Very often we need to put in the you time, the family time, the time to go to the gym or whatever. I tell the story in the book of one of my contacts, Suzanne, very busy. Susan, she runs a very busy business helping support other people in their businesses. She gets hundreds of emails. She's pressed for time. She often said that when she went for a run first thing in the morning, she'd feel energized. If she didn't manage to do that, she'd feel overwhelmed by the time she looked at her email. So very often we need to understand what makes you tick. The book has also got a few exercises that helps you become more creative. You know, maybe you need to be more creative. Maybe you need to get out more. Maybe you need to think about new ideas. Maybe you need to give yourself space. You know, some people, are you working from home? Would you be better working at a more inspiring environment? As a sole trader, you've got the freedom to be able to do some of these things. So begin to think about what makes you most creative. The book has also got some other tools around creativity and also a 2-page business plan. Because I think when you're running a business, you need to understand the right blend of framework and flexibility that works for you. So again, I might touch on that, and there's lots of tools in the book about that. The 7th theme is compassion. Excuse me. And this takes us again to the heart of the book. If you don't love your business, why are you in it? If you do not love your customers, why are you doing it? Your customers aren't going to love you. People don't often talk about love in business, but if you don't love it, it's going to all end in tears. When people love what they do, it gives them the edge. It is the thing that will give you the edge. It's going to be the thing that people come back to you time and time and time again. You remember the people at networking events who are passionate about what they do, who are passionate about their product, who are passionate about you, their potential customer. You need to be passionate. But it goes in 3 ways. First of all, you need to love you. Are you nourishing you? Are you giving yourself the time that you need? Very often business owners are giving time to everybody else, but they're not nourishing themselves. In the book, I tell a story of one of my clients, a wonderful entrepreneur running a successful business. He's very accomplished. However, I wrote to him when I was writing the book. He told me at that moment he'd just been released from hospital because his heart, he had a heart scare. Fortunately, nothing scary, but his heart was telling him, hello, take care of me. So first of all, you need to take care of you. You need to take care of your family. You need to take care of your staff. You need to take care of your customers. If you take care of your customers, especially in this kind of climate, they will stay with you. That yours will be the last subscription that they want to cancel. And finally, before I invite Tom and Suzanne into this and we begin to explore some of your questions, the last theme is change. Everything is subject to change. I was joking a while ago, I know I don't look old enough, but when I first started working my first job, I had a typewriter around my desk, a typewriter. I now coach people who don't even know what a typewriter is or was. You know, the world will change, the economy will change, technology will change, everything's changing. This talk today has brought on a new form of technology. You know, many of us are having to, as small business or any business, grappling things with, even something like the internet is largely 10, 15 or so years old. You know, it's a 90s kind of thing. So there's always going to be changes. There's going to be technological changes. There's going to be changes in your there's going to be changes in your life, in your family life, in your circumstances. Your customers are going to change. Their needs are going to change. Now, you need to be mindful about that change. And one of the things I pick up in the book is, in a way, as human beings, we are duplicitous about change. On the one hand, we want change. We want more customers. We want the interest rates to change. We want to, we want to be able to do this. On the other hand, we want everything to stay the same. We don't want customers to leave us, and so on. So the thing about this chapter, it invites you to accept change, to embrace change, and sometimes to be the change. To be it. Maybe you are the change in the industry. These are interesting times where people really want businesses that really care about them. So the invitation, finally, of the book is for you to be the change maker. It's for you to lead the way, for you to really care about your customers and care about what you do and make a difference in the world. So that's the book in a nutshell. Tom, I don't know if you've got any initial kind of thoughts or observations, or before we bring in Suzanne, or Suzanne, you might be chomping at the bits to say something.
Sure. Suzanne, what are your thoughts from those 7 areas that Rasheed covered?
I mean, I would tend to agree with, I mean, I've worked with Rasheed for ages, so I'm very familiar with his approach, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything that he's discussed. I think the thing that I tend to feel is the most important, and this is just my personal bias, is the aspect of communication, because the communication aspect is about how you communicate with your customers, how you communicate with your audience, how you communicate with your network, how you communicate perhaps, with your business through your website. And I feel like this word communication, or this word conversation, is something that really ties into all of the things that Rasheed's been talking about.
No, that's a good point. And it's funny, as you say, that maybe we all come at this from the bias of what it is that, we do, because I think out of all of those areas, and of course, I think any business person, any entrepreneur would say, yeah, that's all important. But the things that really strike me, I think, are really looking at the customers. And a lot of the work that I do, with my clients, etc., is about how do you get clients or customers to come back, and why would they come back? And a lot of these points that you raise really resonate, and they're so important for so many reasons. Not only because it enables you to develop a better service or a better product, but also because it helps you stand apart, as you pointed out, Rasheed, and it gives them a reason to come back. And nowadays, I think referrals and with social media is probably the one thing that can kill or make your business really quickly. If people have a bad experience with your company, they'll be sharing it on Twitter, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and that's it. It's gone out. And the opposite works as well, conversely. So,
and you're so right. You're so right, Tom. And just to add there, and I think you're both so right, because when Suzanne was talking about that communications being the key, and hence the chapter about conversations and about cooperation, the reason why the book starts with clarity is that as a business owner, you are the captain of your ship. So be it that you're engaging with a web designer, a marketeer, or anybody, or your customer, unless you're clear who you are, what you're about, or whatever, nothing is going to be able to be clear. But as soon as you are clear, then, as Suzanne says, that communication is going to be absolutely key throughout. And your communication needs to be clear, it needs to be crisp, it needs to be compelling, it needs to be coherent, especially in this days, as you're talking about social media, where people will be, it can be the communication is the breath or the death of any business, I often say. And what you're saying, Tom, is so true also, that then it's actually about it's about your customers, because again, if you're not communicating, if you don't understand your customers, it's not going to work. But if you can really understand them, if you can add value, wow, it's going to make your job so much easier, and you can come up with new products. It's going to be easy. It's going to be a dance. So you're absolutely right to pick up these particular particular themes.
Absolutely. And earlier during the talk, you touched on the concept of courage, and I mean, on the one hand, it's really interesting and I'd love to get you guys' thoughts, and I have a couple of questions coming in as well, which I'll share. But this whole thing about courage, Rasheed, and also what do you think, Suzanne? I mean, I look at it that every entrepreneur has to have some courage, otherwise, none of us would be crazy enough to jack in a job and just and go off and try and build something. So there's that level of courage, but I guess what you're talking about, Rasheed, is maybe smart courage, right? That, you have to have the courage to do your convictions, but you need to do it the right way, as it were, or follow the right path with your courage, if you know what I mean. Is that clear?
Yeah, that sounds great. You froze.
Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry. Back. Oh, Rasheeds Frozen.
I think he got too excited by the question.
Oh, no, he's back. He's back. There he is.
Excellent.
Sorry, do you want to
Rasheed,
repeat what you said?
Yeah, Rasheed, you froze up. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I like that question a lot, Tim. That question that you asked was a beautiful question about this thing about smart courage. You need to, one of the things I think, and I don't know if I refer this to in the book, I think I do, I say that sometimes, particularly let's say if you're starting out, or perhaps with anything, at any stage, be it taking on the next customer, or whether it is you're going to relocate or open an extra store or take on a member of staff, I liken it a little bit like, when you're learning to swim, and everyone's got a sense of how far away from the edge that they need to be, that they think that they can get to in terms of strokes to get to the edge. You need to have an understanding of that. As an entrepreneur, you need to know what your own relationship is to risk. And in fact, I think one of the dictionary's definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who enters enterprise or ventures with a chance of success or failure. So it's all about risk, but you need to understand what your relationship is to risk. Some people like just climbing hills, other people want to climb mountains. Generally speaking, the higher the mountain, the more equipment and the more support you're going to need. So I think that that's one of the things that I would say, if you, in terms of courage, to be very mindful about that. Know yourself. It's really important. That's why the book takes people first on in the space of clarity, so that, on a journey of self-discovery, so you know whether is business even for you. I tell a story in the book of somebody being in business for some time. He'd run some successful businesses, but you know what? Now he'd got to the point for him, he had other challenges. It was now for him about family. It was now about him going to explore new things. And I think it's really important that we're very honest with ourselves. I think one thing I would say about this in terms of courage, maybe and link to what you're saying about smart courage, Tom, and then it'll be fascinating to hear what Suzanne says, is I think you also need to think about what your circumstances, at the moment. For me, when I started off as a coach, and before that I was a singer, and many people who are perhaps artists or creative artists and might be watching this, there will be some fields that maybe seem to be or might actually be quite particularly risky, or there might be uncertainty, as well as being an entrepreneur generally. And think a little bit about your circumstances. I was quite lucky when I started. I didn't have dependents and all the rest of it, and I'm quite a gung-ho kind of person. I've got a lot of faith in myself, and so yeah, I could do that. There wouldn't be that much risk. I could walk into a job. Perhaps if you've got a family of 5 and so on, you need to be far more measured. So you do need to understand, and I think you do need to be smart. But I think there will be challenges, and sometimes I think that there are some of the challenges that being an entrepreneur will bring you that will really show your mettle. And what entrepreneurs constantly say is that it's very often those challenges or the problems that will really sharpen their act. And that's why I say, like being an athlete. An athlete learns more from the races that they lose, the hurdles that they stumble at, that they do from the races that they win, and that makes them a sharper athlete.
I mean, I'd like to just jump in briefly. It's I think it may be slightly, it's also to do with courage, but it's a slightly different type of courage. I feel that once you've made that leap, once you've decided that you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to have the courage to trust yourself. When you've got a gut feeling about something, if you know, for example, that a new client is probably going to let you down, potentially you don't risk that. You need to have the courage to believe that you can do things, and also not to deceive yourself, because we're masters of self-deception. I think sometimes we sit down and think, I've built my website, now they will come. And that's not true. You have to have the courage to actually go out there and put yourself out. And then I think on the opposite, and this is a personal thing that I've had to learn, you've also got to have the courage to trust other people and bring them on board as part of your team. So for me personally, I confess that I am a little bit of a control freak. I find it incredibly difficult to ask other people for help. I find it incredibly difficult to outsource stuff or get other people to do my marketing, because I want to know that I'm in control of everything. And it took me an incredibly long time to learn to have the courage to just let go and say, okay, you know what? Rasheed's a much better business coach than I will ever be to myself. And, he's a support that I can lean on. And just creating that power team and having the courage to let go and trust other people as well as yourself, I think is a really big thing.
I think that's such a good point there, Suzanne, and it really leads on nicely to where I wanted to steer this sort of discussion, and I'll throw in one of the questions. But before I do, you know, you spoke about power team, and that leads us into this whole area of cooperation and collaboration. And you can look at that from so many different areas because, as you pointed out, you know, you guys, obviously you collaborated around a specific project, and you published a book with other entrepreneurs, and so there's that level of collaboration. Very often when I'm talking to clients, it's encouraging them to collaborate with other companies so they can both mutually benefit in terms of joint ventures, sharing customers and clients, obviously, you know, non-competitive sort of thing. How important do you find it, Suzanne? Because, you know, you work with clients all over the world, and I'd imagine you outsource, as you just said, some of the work that you do. You know, this whole area of cooperation, and how do you work that, and you know, how do you sort of refine your techniques?
I mean, there are different types of cooperation and collaboration, and I think one of the things that it's very interesting for me. When I started my business, I was living in Austria, and I started the business in England, and I've only met about 5 of my customers, and I have a good 200 or 300 customers out there. So I have this very unusual situation where I don't get to go out and network and meet people face to face. So in terms of collaboration and you know, and cooperation, I spend an awful lot of time using tools like LinkedIn or eacademy.com and looking for people who I think are interesting. And I'll send them a note and just say, oh, you know, you look really interesting. What are you doing, and why are you doing this? And from that, I've had, you know, A, work, but B, I've also been able to make, and I'm going to put this in inverted commas, friends or kind of business partnerships who I've been able to refer things to. And then, of course, I've come over here to the US, and I find myself in this very unique position of having to actually go to networking meetings, which is horrifying. And what I find here is I find that there are a lot of people who do similar stuff to me. And I think initially I looked at them and I thought, oh, this is a big threat. I shouldn't go to these networking meetings. I need to be the only one, the only branding person, the only web design person. And what I've realized from talking to these people is, you know, even though they are theoretically competitors, most of them actually want different types of customers to me. So although they're in the same industry, they're great collaborators, because when somebody comes to me and says, for example, I'm on a shoestring budget, I've got £100 and I want to recreate Facebook, I can say, you know what, I can't do that for you, but I know somebody who might be able to. So these are really great collaborative relationships with potential competitors. And even more than that, one of the things that I find very what's the word, valuable, is sharing my knowledge, because I've discovered coming over here that there are an awful lot of people who haven't been in business as long as I have, and who haven't worked as internationally as I have. So I find that I have a huge amount of knowledge that I can share with other people, which brings a huge amount of goodwill. Sometimes it results in clients, but sometimes it just results in good collaborations and you know, good relationships. And I think that's also a big part of being successful in business, because if you're on your own and you've got nobody feeding back into you, I think, you know, you're an island. You're not, for me personally, that's not a successful business. So, but you know, of course, Rasheed's point about what do you want from a business, I don't want to discount people who are islands. So,
no, I think that's a great answer, and there's so much in that. Perhaps I should just pull it out, and we can put it in a separate blog post, because I mean, some great tips on how to network effectively, some really useful advice about, you know, how you can use, you know, collaborate even with what people you'd think would be competitors, and that's really brilliant. And also the importance of, you know, sharing knowledge just freely without expecting anything in return. Really cool. What do you think of that, Rasheed? And then after you answer this, I think I'm going to ask a question that's come through through Facebook as well.
I couldn't agree with Suzanne more. And this thing about cooperation, the right people for the different right projects is really right. And it's one of the reasons that in the cooperation chapter in the book, it helps people map out, you know, what's the different types of expertise that you will need. What are the different, you know, what are the different types of collaboration? Because you know, there's going to be there's going to be your team, there might be stuff in terms of your staff, your network. It really helps you to begin to map through that and begin to then make your way through things like all the different types of collaboration that you could swap skills with people. You could create an informal partnership. So it walks you through all of these different kind of options through to things like networking, in order that you can develop the right team for you, because I think that's really important. And it's one of the reasons why, for example, with this call, and you know, for example, the whole book, I really wanted to not just bring in my own knowledge. I asked a handful of people who I'd worked with and I knew, and people like Suzanne, who's some of my one of my strongest business kind of connections, I was very clear that I wanted their expertise. I really wanted their voice. Heather, who couldn't be on this call, who's a finance expert, you know, I'm a business coach, for example, but there will be finance issues that will emerge from many businesses that is outside of my expertise. Heather is exceptional. She's from the States originally. She's based here. So again, when I was doing those kind of chapters, I would bring in the expertise of those people I know. So that thing about the strength of your network is really important. And I think one of the first things I learned when I went out networking was that, first of all, I thought, oh, all these people I meet are going to become my customers. And then I realized, hang on a minute, I'm meeting good, bad, and indifferent people. Spot the people who are good, bad, and indifferent. And as Suzanne said, even the people in your same industry, and it's one of the things that we pick up in the book, spot the people who are exceptional. Spot the people you like and trust. Spot the people who share your values. It's important that people share your values, and this book goes into this a lot, but who have different skills, styles, and strengths. This is important because if they don't share your values, you're in trouble. If you're doing business with them or what have you, I've run other businesses, and so we have just different, you know, we have different viewpoints. If you have a different perspective, you could be going to different stops on the train, but you can't be going to a whole different, you know, you've got to be going on the same right line. And without that, you know, it's not going to work. Suzanne, I got a sense you wanted to add something at that point.
No. I was just agreeing with you. I think that the value thing is huge. I have people that I've met who are very capable and very competent at what they do, but I would never outsource stuff to them because I feel that they screw their customers, or I feel that that they're very poor about communication and always leave people in the lurch. And because they don't share those same values, for me, that's a huge thing. You know, if they don't resonate with you, then don't touch them, personally.
And you're so right, Suzanne. And also that takes us, you know, Tom, before we go back to the other question, this takes us to the heart of Soul Trader. It is essential. Because that is, you need to understand who you are, what your values are, what you're about, what you're trying to create, in order that you are able to create those relationships with yourself, with your team, with your family that you're really wanting to do. Business is not just about business. Business is part of our lives. It is part of serving people and so on. And when you deeply understand that, when you deeply understand your values, when you deeply understand your customers, when you deeply understand your staff, when you deeply understand the environment you're working in, you will create a business that is transformational, not just transactional. Business should be transformational. If there's any message that I want to bring in as a coach, as a business coach, as a motivational speaker in the work that I want to do, business should be transformational. And business has been transformed. It is different. It's changed over the last 10, 15 years. We care ethically, environmentally, and so on. These things are changing. People are wanting to run a business that is in keeping with their values, their lives. They don't want to just work really hard. They want a life as well. These are some of the things. They all link to our values and so on and our aspirations. So I'm so glad that Suzanne picked up on those points, because it takes us absolutely to the heart of putting the heart back into your business.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, and some really powerful information there if people just sort of, if we can all absorb that, and some really useful lessons, I think, for all of us to think about further. Question came through, which is a bit broad, but I think it's really useful, because I'm curious. I kind of guess what you're going to answer, perhaps, Rasheed, or maybe not, but I think it cuts across a lot of what you spoke about, and it's from Vernal, and on Facebook he says, "Hi Rasheed, I'm really excited about your book. But would really love to know your definition of success, and when do you know when you've got it?"
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful question. Thanks, Vernal. Hi, Vernal. Thanks, Vernal. By the way, Vernal is the one person to thank. If you're watching this and you can see the picture of the Soul Trader book and the coffee and the muffin, that was Vernal who took that picture when we met up for a coffee and a chat. And congratulations, Vernal, with the book that you're writing at the moment. I think this is a really important question, and it's a fundamental question. There is a myth of modern living. The myth of modern living in the West particularly is that success leads to fulfillment. When I get the right exam results, when I get the right job, when I get the right business, when I get the right number of customers, when I get the right body shape, when I get the right amount of money in the bank, it will lead me to fulfillment. So different people will have different measures of what success is, but there's this, first of all, a myth that it will lead you to fulfillment, to happiness. It's an illusion. Some of the people I coach include millionaires. They include people who are incredibly successful, but they don't see themselves as successful, and they are not happy. So that's myth number one to get rid of. And one of the points in the book was that, and it links into the thing we're talking about in terms of courage, one of the entrepreneurs that I talk about, who there's a very powerful bit in the book, in the chapter I think about courage, was a conversation I had with Rachel Elner, who's a very successful entrepreneur here in the UK, who was in the first 2 series of the Dragon's Den program in the UK, which I know is also aired with, I think, a different cast in the States. She'd run a successful business, multi-million-pound business, and so on. And we had a conversation. First of all, what was really interesting is that the success that you might get, it might arrive today, but it might go tomorrow. So that's one thing. You know, during the time of writing the book, for example, there were a number of serious environmental and other issues that happened in Japan. So one of the world's strongest economies, where people had built really strong, robust businesses, your whole business could be washed away overnight. What are you going to do then? If your whole measure of success is just the material things that you have, you're going to really, really, really struggle. So I think that the first thing I really invite people to do is ask yourself, what is your definition of success? Usually you start out life being given a definition of what success is, the right job, the right this and that. You need to decide, which is why one of the first things I said, what is it to you? Is it about having 3 houses and a boat, or is it about doing what you wanted to do? You really need to ask yourself that. For me, I love the Bob Dylan quote. If a man wakes up in the morning and he goes to bed at night, and if in between he does what he wants to do, then he's a success. I think that's a beautiful definition of success. I think that you yourself need to you need to define it. But I think there's also, for me, you know, as a coach, I've also got a perspective on this as a coach, which is that I always look for the moment when I'm coaching people, wherever they are in their life journey, where all the different bits that they're about, their passions, their interests, their skills, they all come together, their motivations, because then they're doing what they're wanting to do in a way that's so joyful that it is fulfilling, so that they not only have the success, however they measure it, but more importantly, they actually have that joy, the full fulfillment. Because if you just have success, I meet so many people who are stressed, exhausted, and this is one of the traps of the entrepreneur. You've got to be so passionate about what you've got to do. I often say you've got to do the thing that you couldn't not do. And for me as a coach, I couldn't not do this. You know, because success is going to be conditional, and it's also going to be dependent. And this is another important point before, you know, as a speaker, I can go on for a long time. But the last point I'll say this, and we don't often have this very honest conversation about success. The success and fulfillment. Success is dependent on many factors. You, your skill set, how hard you are prepared to work, how much effort you're going to be prepared to put in it. This is in the book. So, for example, you might be an athlete, and you might decide, I want to win the Olympic gold. Only one person is going to win the Olympic gold in your event every 4 years. What are you going to do then? You know, what are your skills, what are your talents? How hard are you prepared to work? Might you need to redefine success? And also, success may come and it may well go. We're at a time in the economies whereby there may be factors outside of your control that will mean that the entire industry, your whole economy may collapse. What are you going to do then, as we're seeing in certain parts of Europe? So we really need to look deeply at this question of success, and also have a more rounded perspective of what success is and what fulfillment is. So that's my, you've got me going now. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, I think that's an area that would be worthwhile coming back to again, because it can get really deep, and it's obviously fundamental to, like, why do we set up a business in the first place anyway? You know,
let's do another live chat on that. And in fact, I think, Tom, it was one of the choices. We will do another future live chat, particularly about this thing about success and fulfillment, because I think that Vernal's asked us a very, very important point, and it's really, really important. I'd love Suzanne's quick take, if we've got time, before we move on to another question. Suzanne, what's your take on that about success, and what is success, and how do you personally measure it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's something that you and I have discussed in my 2 or 3 years of calling you on and off. You know, I feel like success is a very personal thing. For me, success is about doing something that I really enjoy, that gives me lots of space to do all the gazillion other things that I want to do as well, and earn a decent living so that I feel secure. Now, for me, a decent living might be, I don't know, let's pick a figure, $1 million, let's pretend. You know, for somebody else, they may need a minimum of 100 million to make sure that they feel comfortable. Obviously, I'm throwing out really weird figures. So I feel like it's just such a personal thing, and I feel it's, you know, I would never say to somebody, oh, well, you aren't successful, because, you know, maybe they are, maybe it's just their definition's different to mine, you know, so, yeah. Perspective is everything.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think what comes out from your answer as well, Suzanne, for me is, and this ties again back to, you know, straight back into the book, Rasheed, is it's a personal thing, which means it's all about having the clarity to understand what's important for you. I mean, I love how this all just, it's like a circle. Everything comes back to, to these fundamental questions. One thing though, Suzanne, and while we got you on, it would be really cool, you mentioned a hint here that, Austria, I know you're from South Africa originally, you're now based in the States. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience with internationally working with companies and businesses in different countries, as well as yourself. We had a question actually, which I think was from Heather Rasheed, which was about simple advice for those who are thinking of doing business in another country or even moving to another country. And I think we've got an expert right here, Suzanne, to give us a few useful pointers. What would you say to that?
I mean, I think it depends on what you're doing and how you're traveling. So one of the things that I do, in addition to my branding and website and all that good stuff that everybody needs as an entrepreneur, is I actually work with larger corporations who have to work with international folk or who are sending their employees on international assignments. And, I have this conversation with both business people who are physically moving to another country and have to adapt to the communication styles in the host country, but they're being supported by their company. So they don't need to worry about all the day-to-day stuff. Then from a moving point of view, you also end up with what's called the trailing spouse. It could be a male or female. And it's the person who goes along with the person who's got the main job. Are they allowed to work? How are they going to adapt? What's going to happen with their social circle? So it really depends on why you're moving. And I guess I would probably distill it into three different types. One would be that you have decided that you want to remain in your own country, so you're going to remain in the UK, that you want to start attracting customers from different regions, different parts of the world, and you want to be able to communicate with them on the same sort of level. In that sort of situation, what I would recommend is making sure that you're set up very well technologically. So you would need to make sure that, for example, you had a Skype in number or a VoIP number that was based in their particular country, so that they felt that you were in their country even if you weren't physically there. So it's a bit of a trick, it's a bit naughty, but it works really well, and people feel much more comfortable talking to somebody who they think is in the same country as them. Obviously other things to bear in mind from a technological point of view, if you're going to be working with a country that speaks a different language, make sure that your website has some sort of translation feature, even if you don't, make it completely localized. If you're going to be working with the US, make sure that you've got some pages that are targeted to them and that actually use their language. Here in the US, I have this big it's a standing joke with most of the people that I meet, and I say, well, you don't speak English. You don't speak proper English. But of course, they don't think that the people from the UK or from South Africa speak proper English. We misspell everything. We put U's all over the place. So make sure that you've actually got your content and you've written it in a way that they're going to read this and think, oh, yeah, this person's like me. That sort of that feeling that person's like you, and then they'll want to do business with you. And I think that's a big deal. Again, from a cultural point of view, and this is if you're going to be selling products, for example, overseas, you need to be really careful about your branding. You need to make sure that the name that you're using, all these invented names that we have nowadays, it doesn't turn out to be some weird and wonderful word that is very derogatory in another language. I mean, we've seen so many of these, haven't we? A classic example, I think, is I think it's in South Korea, there is a cool drink or a soda, if you've got American folk on the line, called Sweat. And I don't think that too many British people or too many Americans are going to have a can of Sweat, so these are little things that you need to really bear in mind. And then obviously just learning a bit about the country that you're going to, the people that you're going to be working with, tapping into your local if you're an entrepreneur and you are physically moving, tapping into your local small business association, whichever country you're going to be in, there's going to be a chamber of commerce or something similar, tapping into that and using those resources and, building those networks face to face is really big, because otherwise you isolate yourself and it's difficult to get out there. So, I mean, I can talk about this for hours, but I won't. I shall stop there.
Well, that's really cool. What do you want to add there, Rasheed?
I just want to add something that Heather, the finance expert who is from the States originally, who couldn't be on this call because she was busy working with a client, she added a few things that, and I so agree with what Suzanne said, on the finance side. she said that, for example, if, for example, you're thinking about doing business with another country, and let's say you're thinking about moving there, what have you, see if when you're traveling there, research the country and meet as many lawyers and accountants as you can. They'll usually give you the first 30 minutes for free, because you need to understand those different nuances in terms of law or in terms of accounting. Also, another lovely tip that she shared, which I thought was really interesting, if, for example, you're, as Suzanne was saying there, it might be the case that you are, let's say, still based in the US, let's say, but you're going to be doing business with another country, which uses different currency. Perhaps you could start using an exchange broker so that you're dealing in the currency that people are going to be paying you in. And she also points out that, otherwise you might be paying too much when it comes to converting the cash. She says, make sure that you also understand the prices of the product and service in that country. Perhaps there are these variations from country to country. Maybe it's more expensive where you're from than what the market will bear somewhere else. You need to be mindful about that. And again, be aware of any other customs and excise issues. So again, for the entrepreneur who's going internationally, you're going to need to think about these particular issues. And my advice on top of that would be, ask yourself, are you comfortable with those kind of issues, or are you better to get an expert to help you? And interestingly, for me, it might well be, for example, with a book like this, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I might be asked to do some particular work in the States. I'd far rather, actually, for certain of the pieces of work that might emerge, might want to work with someone like Suzanne, who specializes in that, to work with me on that particular project and say, Suzanne, actually, this is a project. Can you mastermind this trip with me in order that I can arrange this, 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 and this, which means that I can focus on the things that I do best, and that you're able to have the courage to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, the opportunities that you're wanting, but you don't fall into too many of the pitfalls.
Excellent. And just while I got you, obviously, Suzanne, while we have you here, just to share some more info, but, and this ties back to the book as well, Rasheed, doesn't it? Because everything that you were saying in your previous answer, Suzanne, was a lot of it focused around communication.
Yeah.
And, obviously on your website, but beyond that, communicating with the new culture that you find yourself in, understanding the culture, and so on. But just on a more basic, I guess, business level, when you started your business and now you're working with clients all over the world, was that a conscious decision to do that because of your background, or was it a business decision, or was it just the way things worked out? I mean, why didn't you just, build your customer base from the local area that you live in?
Well, the short answer is that it was just dumb luck, really. My husband's Austrian, and when I met him, I moved from the UK, where I was a technical project manager, and he said to me, don't worry about learning German, everybody here speaks English. And I thought, oh, right, that's okay. And I moved over, and I discovered that A, nobody wanted to speak English, even if they could, and B, there was absolutely no demand for a technical project manager in what was essentially a tourist town. And so I sort of sat down and I thought to myself, okay, what can I do? What appeals to me? I thought, okay, well, I've got this branding background, I've got a pretty technical background, I'll start doing websites. How hard can it be? And then I realized, of course, that there is no entrepreneurial community in Austria. It's not a very big entrepreneurial country. They tend to be very much focused on being employed and paying their social security and so on. It's a very different setup to the UK. And I went online in the UK, and I had a property in the UK, so I was able to have an address. I set up the business, and it really snowballed from there. I think I did a couple of projects for free just to prove to myself that I could do them, and almost every single other client that I've had in the last 8 years, 10 years has been referral based. So it was really just pure luck, and it's just expanded from there. So.
And I think what Suzanne says there, Tom, is a very important point, and it's one of the things at the heart of the book. Because actually, it says that when you understand this stuff about clarity, customers, and communication, that as Suzanne experienced, and together with what you can turn your hand to and being creative, which Suzanne demonstrated there, is that therefore then most small businesses or micro businesses or individual experts, most of the thing, your website, everything is a conversation. So you need to be really clear and crisp about these particular things, and mindful of also cultural differences too if you're working internationally.
Rasheed, can I just jump in there very briefly? It just occurred to me whilst you were talking, and based on all the other questions that have been coming up. You were talking earlier on about how we're in this really interesting, for want of a better word, economic climate, and more and more people are starting their own businesses. But I think it's useful to point out that you know, yes, it's all lovely to have a fantastic idea and a wonderful passion and to start a business, but some people are actually finding they have to start a business from necessity. You know, and as you said, drawing on your skills there is really huge. And if people are thinking of actually moving overseas, so if your husband or wife has decided they're going to take a job or they're going to move to another country in order to start up, and you find yourself in a situation where, like me, you're thinking, crikey, I can't physically work here, what can I do to be creative? You know, I feel like that's as good a reason to start a business as just having a passion. I feel like necessity is a big deal as well.
I think you're so right, Suzanne. I'm so glad you said that. And I think that when the book says that, you know, there are lots of people who feel, you know, many entrepreneurs actually often feel that, you know, it can either be passion or the fact that they, you know, I felt, for example, at a particular point I was unemployable. You know, I couldn't bear working where I was, or that, you know, you can't get work anywhere else or what have you. And I think that's one of the reasons why, again, that the book really asks people early on in that clarity section about what your passion, what your skills, and what your talents. Because if you are going to need to grow your business from necessity, it will be, in particular in certain climates, or if you're going into a new environment, it's going to be so tough that if you're not building a business around your skills, your talents, or something that you're so passionate about, even if it wasn't what your traditional talent is, it's going to be so hard. So I think that, because I think it's really important that we also have that realism, isn't it, around business, that you've got to have that drive, that you're going to have to find reasons to. There are going to be long nights and so on. You're going to need to find passion from somewhere. So I think your point about necessity is so true. I know, Tim, that due to necessity, soon we're going to have to wind this up. But do you want us to take a couple more last questions just before we close, or any themes that you're wanting to pick up before we tell people where they can get the book and find Suzanne and yourself?
Yeah, well, I thought what would be useful actually is, you know, we've got a few minutes left, would be just for both of you really just sort of wrap up around what we discussed today, and, you know, basing it obviously around the book, and just maybe some last advice or thoughts on the 7 areas that we covered. And I know we went through some of them, but is there any last words, as it were, Suzanne, maybe that you want to share based on those original 7 chapters that Rasheed was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, this is from my personal bias, and I think it does tie into everything that Rasheed said. I just feel that, you know, to flog a dead horse, so to speak, that the communication part is really important. So communicating with yourself and, you know, getting that clarity that Rasheed talks about, communicating with others and finding your niche, and, you know, finding your power team and people to work with you and your customer set. And, you know, I feel like continually having a dialogue both internally and with others. For me, I found that that's been the most crucial thing in all of the 3 businesses that I run. And, you know, I feel that they all tie back into Rasheed's 7+1 points. So, yeah.
Excellent. And, I mean, I guess I'll just chip in quickly. I mean, again, customers, etc. One thing which I think is also important regarding the clarity, especially for people like us, sole proprietors, sole traders, is, you know, we wear so many hats, especially when we're setting up the business and we're doing like so many things. And unless you have that focus of what's really important for you to focus your time and your energy and attention on, you know, you're very easily going to meander down some, you know, and we've all done that, down some wrong path. So I think, yeah, clarity is another area that we didn't touch on perhaps, you know, as much as maybe some of the others, but is really powerful. I mean, what do you think there, Rasheed?
I'd agree, and this is why, as you'd indicate before, these things go in a circle. That you start off with clarity. You're clear, so you're clear. This is who I am, this is what I'm trying to do. Okay, now it's all about my customers. This is my customers, this is what I want, this is what they're prepared to pay for. This is how it ties in. Okay, right, now that I know who my customers are, what is the kind of cooperation that I need? What's the team I need? What's the team I need around me? So the book actually deliberately has an order of events. Okay, that's the cooperation bit. Okay, now I need to have conversations. My website, my literature, my brand is a conversation. How I'm connecting with people, that's all a conversation. Right, okay, that's fine. Creativity, you're going to need to be creative because things are going to need to change, and you're going to need to be creative about how you adjust. Suzanne talked about how, for example, she'd moved from one country to another. Things were slightly different to what she expected, so she needed to be creative and she needed to be resourceful. Exactly, that's why you need to be absolutely then creative. And then from that creative thinking, compassion is going to be really important, because unless you love your customers and love what you do and are compassionate, sometimes it's going to be about the courage to do it, sometimes it's going to be about the compassion to do it, and then everything's subject to change. And you might change. Allow yourself to realize that what you might want personally and professionally might well change. So don't feel bound by that. And also take the time to stop, to review, to check in with where you are. You might want to change. You might want to upscale the dream, downscale the dream. All of our businesses have changed. And be you, love what you do, love others too. That's the message of the book. And let your heart lead the way, you know, and enjoy every single moment of it. And it's a blessing. It's a gift to be able to serve people. Don't forget, you know, my last message would be, and it's the starting message of the book, remember what business is actually about. Remember what the word trade is about and what the word market comes from. One person has one skill and produces one thing. Another person's got another skill and another thing, and they exchange. Everything else, the internet, technology, money, currency, all the rest, branding, web thing is on design, that is all stuff put on top, and the thing in the middle that Suzanne was talking about is the communication, the connectivity about that. If you remember that business is all about people serving them and giving them something that they actually need, and you really care about the people you're working with, you will have a business that will survive. You will have a business that survive and that people love and that you will love. And the rest of it may well be dependent on all sorts of other factors, what success means to you, and all the other things that we've discussed. So I just want to personally take time to thank you both, because for me this thing about cooperation is very important. I want to thank a few people. I want to thank Coke and Page. I want to thank Ashley, the US team of Coke and Page. I would like to thank Liz, Shireen, and everybody at Coke and Page. The book wouldn't have come to life if I didn't. Conversations, all of my business has come from conversations. That was an example of it. So I want to thank those people, and thank you, Tom, for all the work that you've done around Evolved Heart. It's amazing work in terms of that, which is allowing people to share these kind of conversations. I want to thank Suzanne, who's helped me so much, I can't say, in my business over the years. So I'm so glad to have you guys here. Thanks, Heather, who couldn't be here. Thank you to everybody who's contributed. It's a joy. If you, all I want to say is read the book. You know, if you're going to read it, use it your way. It's a coach yourself book. Have fun with it. If you like it, give us your feedback. Post it on Amazon. We'll do whatever. Share it with somebody. It's about sharing that kind of knowledge and enjoy the journey. It's a privilege to be working with people and to be going on this business journey. Love what you're doing is the message of the book. Excellent.
And talking of the book, obviously, you know, we're going to have a recording of this whole chat, which once Google's finished processing it, I'll make sure we get it up on the blog. But also within the blog post, we do have some links to Amazon, so you can actually go straight to buy the book. And you know, I know it's also available at various other bookstores in the UK as well, and I presume in the States as well. Is that correct, Rasheed?
Yeah, that is. I think it is certainly available at Amazon and from Coke and Page as well, their website, and on my website. And here underneath this, if you're watching this, underneath here we'll keep the link, which is the link which has got the details of where you can get the book, and there's some other videos as well. And it'll be quite useful. I don't know, Suzanne, if you can hear us. I know there have been some technical problems. If people are trying to find you, I think your address, if I'm right, is www.future-makers.com. Am I right? Can you hear us?
That's right. Yeah, that's correct.
Excellent. Fantastic. I think what we'll do is put in a link on the post to that site as well.
Fantastic. And Tom, anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Great job as always in the chair, sir.
No, you guys make it easy, I think. No, just thanks to everyone. Just like you said, thank you, Suzanne, for joining us. It was fantastic, really, really useful insights. Thanks, Rasheed, for sharing it, and thank you to everyone for giving up time and listening to us talk about a subject that we're all really passionate about. And if anyone has any questions, let them just send them to us, chip in on Facebook, on the blog, wherever. We'll answer them.
Thanks. So we're gonna sign out now. Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much. Enjoy your journey. Enjoy it.
Cheers. See ya.
Thanks, Tim. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.